Hey everybody, Chris here with another Plantside Chat. Following up part 2 of our new mini-series of Plantside Chats, Christian Character. I want to peel back the curtain and let you in on a secret. Do you know why preachers talk so long on Sunday mornings? Because trying to communicate big concepts and ideas in 5 to 7 minute videos is really hard for us. We got in the business to talk. Anyways, the night after the last video was recorded, I woke up 12:36 a.m. with this idea, and I had to write it down, and I wanted to get right back here next to my trusty plant friend and record this. I woke up with the idea, and here's the idea I had. Reverse engineer the church. Now, what does that mean? I'm probably going to get it wrong, and all of you engineers watching this video are going to look at me and go, that's dumb. People who actually do engineering stuff are going to scoff at my use of the word engineering. I'm going to do it anyways, like that's ever stopped me from doing it. But I thought about this, the church, and how it was originally built and how it started. If we are to grow, I want us to look at reversing the process and the issues that have brought us to the place and the function in this commercial entity that we are today. And I'm speaking kind of Western church culture. I think we need to reverse engineer the church, and here's why. The church became and was born because the first believers were the church, meaning they were a group of believers who were geographically close, and they naturally gathered together to do Jesus-y stuff. That's the technical term for what they did. And the church, this idea of what we know, was born from that small original group of converted people. Today, the church building is what we call the church, and it exists in strategic geographic locations that have to do with egress and land values and attractiveness and demographic research or demographic lack of research. And the church now begs people to show up, serve, and give. And just be here, be the church. We have gone from a group of people who naturally join together to serve the needy because of our beliefs to a group of people who are ready to walk away at the drop of a hat because the order of worship doesn't meet our expectations, or the music was too loud, or the music was too soft, or the music was too old, or the music was too new, or the chairs were uncomfortable. Think about this, the day of Pentecost, Acts chapter 2. Did the disciples preach and then go about setting up a church building with demographic research and egress and parking, and then set up worship times and worship orders? I mean, we like to think they did. And then we like to think that Paul immediately showed up and gave all the rules about who was supposed to talk in church and not talk in church and when and how to do communion. And then we happened. That's not how it worked. There's like 1,000 years of history in there. But what did happen is the Spirit moved people to believe in Jesus and to be baptized. Those people naturally formed into groups and entities that became churches. The people, ecclesia. And what happened then was all the problems that Paul had to come in and write about. The church is the people. This is not breaking news. It is the people. We are the church. The church is based upon the character of the people that make it up, the characteristics of the people who are gathering as the body of Christ. If the people are generous, the church will be generous. If they are argumentative and staunchly political, then the church is going to become that. The church began as a way for believers to care for each other, support each other, and to worship God together, period. It was messy, but it was simple. And so I ask, as we follow this theme and series, what are the characteristics you want to see in your church? Because you are the church. And the church will look like you. The church will look like what you want and what you bring to the table. So if you want to see certain characteristics in the church, look in the mirror. Because if your church isn't doing the right things that you think it should be doing, this is your call into action and ministry. Something that has come out of our recent study here at Woodruff Road, our study of James, right, when this video is being made, is this: the most basic characteristic of the Christian needs to be humility, humble service, serving in a manner that exalts God, not self. We look to Jesus, obviously. We look to what Paul wrote about Jesus and his attitude in Philippians chapter 2. But I want to highlight that attitude and that idea of humility and service and tie that all into Christian character and the church by looking at John chapter 13. I'm going to look at verse 1 and verse 3. Before the Passover celebration, verse 1, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and to return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. We're talking about who Jesus is. His hour had come to rejoin God as fully divine in heaven. And he loved his disciples here on earth. So he wanted to teach them one final thing here. Jesus knew, verse 3, that the Father had given him authority over everything and that he had come from God and would return to God. Jesus here, we're giving this description of Jesus by John as God over creation, God over death, God over the sea, everything. So what does Jesus do next after John tells us exactly who Jesus is? He washes his disciples' feet. The church exists to better those around it at a direct cost to itself. Not to plan itself as a site for community's weekly pilgrimage of worship to be treated like a temple or to be treated like a shopping mall. The church exists to serve. The church exists as an extension of the character of the Christian. Let's look at it this way really quick to illustrate this point. Every generation, going back to all generations, blames the one coming after it for being just too fill in the blank. The reality is, one generation is raising the next. So instead of blaming our children for being whatever it is, fill in the blank, think about the way they're being raised. Don't want bullies? Don't raise bullies. Don't want entitled spoiled brats? Don't raise entitled spoiled brats. Want a church that meets your needs? Be the church. Be the church that meets the needs of others first. Want a church that supports missions? Support your church financially, regularly. Want a church that has a strong youth program or strong children's ministry? Teach your children about Christ. And help them and help the church create ministries that meets needs of the community. Want a church that grows? Share the gospel. Be the church. I'll see you Sunday.